Now, today we're going to talk about the court system, how MAGA in the court system is affecting us as black folks. And see, what I'm about to say is, I'm going to tell you how my son uncovered a criminal entity in the court system. You ain't got to believe me, but it's true. But it's true. See, my son is he's a gentleman. He's very responsible in paying his bills. You know, he told me that, you know, I asked him, I said, "When I ain't never met one of your girlfriends." He said, "Mama, when I find the right one, you're going to be the first one to meet her." It made me proud. When he was struggling in college, and I told him, "Come on home so you can save up some money so that you can and go to college." His response was, "Mama, how can I be a man when every time I fall, you catch me?" That hurted me, but it gave me confidence that, you know what, me as a parent with his father, we did our job. My son don't come to me asking me for help. You normally come to me with asking me for advice. So when he came into this situation, I told him the steps that I would take to help him. Not giving him no counter. I just guided him. My son had been living in the cabinet shop lofts in Memphis, and it was sold to some foreign man, and he changed the name to the Stallion Apartments. Cabinet Street lofts were the warehouse. You know in Memphis that it was the warehouse. So my son was in the portal and he was paying his rent. He didn't have no problem. He didn't have no problem with the previous property manager, front in Maine. But, you know, with this man, you know, the man got in, and my son air conditioner broke down, and he told him he'll fix it. Didn't tell him when he was going to come, and he fixed the air conditioner, but he did something that messed up the heat. And my son, I didn't know this until later on, my son was living in an apartment paying $1,800 a month, and he had no heat. This in Memphis, he didn't have no heat. You know, being a mama, like hearing it, I asked him, "Why didn't you say anything?" He said, "Mama," he said, I put in a request. But he changed the portal, and there was no way I could, I saw him in the hallway, and I asked him about it, and, I noticed he was fixing up other apartments around the unit, but he never came to mine. He said, so before I renew my lease in January, he said I was going to, talk to him about when he was going to, fix my heat. Have you been in Memphis now? Memphis ain't nothing to play with when in the wintertime, when it get deep in the wintertime, and when it gets in the middle of summertime. So one night while I was, looking at TV, my son called me and said, "Mama," he said, "I tried to renew my lease, and the man told me he's not renewing nobody else's lease. He said that they taking he's not doing anybody's lease. He said he's turning the Stallion from a resident to a hotel. And my lease just expired, and he told me I have to get out. When was I going to get out?" I said, "Did he really say that?" "Yeah." He said, "When am I going to get out?" He said, "Mama, I asked him, how come he didn't tell us? He didn't tell me that he was converting it over." He said, "Mama, is there a law to protect me for that?" So I said, "Jeffrey," that's my son's name. I said, "You know what? Go and look up this TCA code. That'll explain everything." So my son did. He came back and said, "Mama, he was supposed to give us a 60-day notice and allow us to break our lease and leave." He said, "Had I known that, I would have broke my lease and left. He said, but he didn't do that. He said, Mama, he said, he just telling me today. And he wants me out by the end of the week. I said, Jeffrey, look at this law. Send it to him. So it must have been a debate between my son exercising his right as a tenant in Tennessee and the landlord not knowing the rights in Tennessee. So what happened was my son didn't move out, but on his way to work, he opened up the door and found a eviction notice on his door. Eviction notice said he had to get out by the 10th. It was delivered on the 8th, so he had a one-day notice to get out on the 10th. Y'all know in Memphis, it snowed on the 10th. The weather was very bad on the 10th. But my son didn't go out. My son, he travels. He says, you know what, Mama, you can't call me. He said, Mama, I think this man been in my apartment. He said, because there was certain things that was in my apartment that got turned around. So I said, you know what? I said, you need to buy you some cameras. He said, yeah, but I need to move. So the next day, 10th came up. The next day, that was a Saturday, man put another eviction notice on the door. Said, if you ain't out by the 17th, I'm going to go to court and tell the judge to put you out. Yeah. Now, here's the kicker part. Tennessee's law, even if you're a nuisance, don't even say that you have to get out. You got a one-day notice. It gives you at least 14 days. But this man told my son that he was giving him a courtesy if he even gave him 30 days. So my son filed a suit in Shelby County Circuit Court. It was given to Division 3. That was Valerie Smith. She later became Appellate Court Judge Smith. But hold on now, I'm going to tell you how this criminal enterprise is working at the Shelby County government in West Tennessee. The landlord hired Richard Glassman of Glassman, Tuttle, Watts, Houdini. You know what I'm talking about. See, and he went in, and the associate, Hayden Davis, went in and started sending my son threatening emails. Look here, you got to leave. Your lease expired. You've been living there, your lease expired. You need to hurry up and leave. You stay there past a month, that, we're going to assess 25% on your rent, plus you're going to pay our legal fees. Okay, all righty. I said, Jeffrey, you're going to have to draft up something. Because if that man go to court, if you ain't never been in court, and a lot of times I just go to listen when I'm in Shelby County, I just want to go and listen. But I know a lot of folks there, but sometimes I want to go in certain courts because I want to see how they are. I want to see how they act. Because, see, I'm going to tell you something. Some black judges treat black people who don't have representation like dogs down there. And then some of them, the white folks, get you caught up in something. They make rulings where it's non-appealable, even if you got evidence. But let me get to that. So my son drafted a lawsuit. It was pretty well drafted. He asked me to look over it. I did. Critiqued it a little bit, gave it back. I said, son, you did good. Now, finding that landlord, because under Tennessee law, your landlord have to give you the address and phone numbers, how to reach you. But this landlord had apartment buildings that was and homes that when you went there, they were vacant. Or he said he lived there, or somebody was on site and it wasn't. Okay. But then my son had the processing server had to be creative and serve him. Yeah, you can DM me about that processing server. I'm telling you, they good. They really good. And they very nice. So the man got served and he hired, like I said, Richard Glassman and stuff. And the landlord was threatening him. The lawyers were threatening him. My son had to do in between times. While he was traveling on business, he had to try to find an apartment. He was denied apartments, not because of his rental history. It was because the landlord was refusing to give him a rental history. But that changed because the landlord converted the apartments to a hotel, which is the Stallion Hotel on Front Street. And as a result of that, they said because it was converted to a hotel, he was able to get his apartment. Now, you know that landlord wasn't nice after my son emailed the attorney within the 30 days and told him I'm moving out on the 15th of February. I told Jeffrey, don't move out on that Friday because I'm driving down there and be tired. So I drove down there to help my son move. And that was a bad week because it was raining real bad. So we got up that morning. We went and got the U-Haul. My son started packing. Landlord walking past the apartment, locking up doors, keeping him from doing this. Oh, he did a whole bunch of other things. You know, we had to stop because it was a thunderstorm and everything. And, you know, he was telling his lawyer he was supposed to move out on the 15th. And he didn't move out until late on the 15th, but he moved out. He was moving out. Well, one particular incident, you know, I was tired. You know, I'm getting old. I realized that. I'd be 60 this year. God bless my heart. And I ended up, I was at the old place while he was unpacking for the new place. All of a sudden I heard now see, Jeffrey's door was like you could unlock it, but you had to push it a little bit. One of them old buildings to get in. So I noticed that I'm sitting here, I'm wet, socks wet, feet wet. I'm under this little bitty fan. I'm drenched, and I hear somebody trying to open up the lock. So I'm thinking it's my son, but they start talking in a foreign language, and I knew it wasn't my son. So they really trying to get in the thing, but they heard me coming and ran. I opened up the door, and I see this foreign woman at the corner looking at trying to look and see who coming out the apartment. Oh, it was worse. So my son ended up leaving. He ended up moving into his new place. But the landlord wasn't happy. He sent the new landlord, the new property manager, an email telling them that my son left. He wanted him to go, and he owed him rent, and he was suing, and my son was suing him. That sounds like retaliation. But you know, anybody that don't know my son is not confrontational. He'll sit and talk to you until he get tired, and then he'll say, well, I'm through, and move on. My son is not confrontational. But his mama is, when she need to be. So I'm like, okay, son. I said, you know what? You need to really, really let the court know what's going on. He said, Mom, I'm handling it. He said, but I work and I'm doing this, but I'm handling. Well, while he was handling, Judge Glassman and Hayden submitted a motion to dismiss which is common. You can submit a motion to dismiss. That's common. That is so common. That is so common. Really common. But you know what? But it was what they attached to the lease, to the motion to dismiss, that got my son's attention. It was a lease forged with his name, dated October of 2024. Now, the landlord lease agreement that was before him had that my son's lease expired January 2025. When he wrote the eviction letter, it said January 2025. But why would it have October 2024 with him to move in December 2024? It made no sense. You can tell they whited out certain things. The rent wasn't even on there right. Wait a minute now. Hold on. Then it had his dad's name on it, but no signature. Now, the last time I checked, that a landlord has to have all parties sign off in order for the lease to be enforced. But no, not in circuit court, not in the courts of Shelby County. No, that don't work. So my son did what he normally do. He called me. He asked me, Mama, this lease is not mine. Now I was down there. I take that back. I was down there. He said, Mama, came and he showed it to me. He said, Mama, he said, this is not my lease. He showed me the lease. Then he showed me his two original lease. I said, Jeffrey, it's forgery. You need to do a police report. That's identity theft. You need to do a police report. And he did. Well, Glassman wasn't happy about that. So my son did some further research. Now this word's finna get good. And found out that Richard Glassman has been complaints been filed before him on numerous times. Richard Glassman, in fact, got Judge Valerie Smith in trouble. Well, see, by this time, she went on to the Court of Appeals now. And she turned around and Karen Williams took over. I said, wait a minute now. Richard Glassman and his law firm has been guilty of so much stuff, dishonesty. In fact, the whole firm has been complained about by both federal and state courts. In one case, it was alleged that Judge Valerie Smith asked Attorney Glassman to mediate two attorneys. Well, you know, Mr. Glassman is arrogant. That white old man, he's just so arrogant. So what he did was he didn't call the opposing attorney. He called the client of the opposing attorney. Then he turned around and threatened that man. Because that man had filed a recusal a complaint against what's her name, Judge Smith. So what he did was he threatened him, brought him to the office. See, that's where he do his criminal entity at, his threats. Brought him to the office. The man went back and told his attorney. The attorney filed a motion to recuse. Judge Valerie said, no, I didn't ask him to do that. I asked him to mediate. I didn't ask him to go over there and threaten that man. You keep that in mind too. So, you know, my son submitted that. And he because he was on the road, he mailed it in. He made sure he mailed it in because he got it certified, a delivery confirmation with the United States Postal Service. Now, under laws, it says that when something is stamped by the United States Postal Service, the court clerk has to take it as the day it was, even if it's timely, even if it's arrived late. Well, Jeffrey gave Mr. Glassman a copy of that plea. Oh no, that little old man, he wasn't even happy. He wasn't happy. Immediately the next day, and his subject wasn't even professional. His subject was you. He said, I don't know you, but I'm sure we can meet and work out a deal that'll be beneficiary to both of us. Oh, and by the way, this meeting is under Rule 408. See, Rule 408 means that it's a settlement, and anything that's in a settlement has to be between, y'all can't really discuss, can't use it in the court. But it's only good for settlements. It's not good for any other stuff. So my son told me, he said, Mama, he bringing me under Rule 408. He said, what's that? And I explained it to him. I said, you know what, you want to brush up on things. I gave him some tips on how to be a effective negotiator. I said, you know what, be reasonable, be courteous. I told him to, write it down. If you're not sure, ask him, could you think about it? Ask him to put it in writing. Ask him to put it in writing for you to look at. Take your time in case you have to go to an attorney and have him look it over. Consider all the factors. So my son brushed up and everything and went down to that 26 North 2nd Street and at 9 a.m. and sat with Mr. Glassman. Mr. Glassman was by himself. See, he don't need no witness, so he didn't let Hayden go in there. Hayden B. Davis, that's one of his law firm people. And he said, you know what? My son started saying, well, before we start talking about the settlement, he said, look, I don't want to talk to you about no settlement. I don't know too much about that case. And then he started going on. See, Mr. Glassman started preaching to him about how he helped black folks and how he helped black attorneys and how him and his wife gave to the black society and black charities, and how he got a black attorney named William, and his friend's son called him uncle. What that had to do with it, I have no earthly idea. But then Mr. Glassman shifted after my son started saying, he listening. He didn't say nothing. He listening, but he was like, get to the point. You know how you get that look, okay, I'm listening, get to the point. So he finally asked Jeffrey to withdraw his pleading against him in court, because he said that it was subject the judge to file a disciplinary, report him to the board for disciplinary. My son said, I didn't come down here for that. That's all he said. I ain't come down here for that. Oh, Mr. Glassman, after praising my son, telling him that he do great legal work and that he made some mistakes, but he'll be a good attorney, told him this. I know judges, lawyers, and attorneys and clerks that will bury you and have this follow you for the rest of your life. My son just got up and left. I'm so proud of my boy. He didn't argue. I said, what you do? He said, I just got up and left. He said, I went to the Memphis police and reported it because, Mama, I felt threatened. He said, the police said that that's normal lawyer talk. Normal lawyer talk. I even reached out to Mike Williams. Thank you, Mike Williams, for giving me some resources to go, but he still didn't get that police report. So I told him, write a letter to the judge. He got the number, the email to the courthouse email, as instructed by Judge Williams' clerk, and sent her an email. And then he turned around and filed it in court. Yeah, filed it in court. Oh, you asking, well, what about that forged thing? We gonna get to that. So then, make a long story even interesting. That plea that I told you that was mailed to the circuit court clerk, Jamita Swessinger? Oh, she received it. She received it the same day that the hearing with Glassman was. Same day. It miraculously disappeared. Now, elected officials have to have a surety bond on them, just like a notary. But instead of Jamita apologizing or letting the clerk know she made an error, no, Jamita went a little bit deep on this one. Jamita clerk started telling my son, oh, well, the postal service lie all the time about mail getting there. So, what better thing to do is to go after Jamita's surety bond for non-performance. Well, Jamita, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, Jamita has failed to reply. Now, this is your court clerk now, who's responsible for filing stuff in the court. But I guess she part of the criminal enterprise that these lawyers got going on. Just hold tight now. You hold tight now. Just hold tight. I hope I'm still with you. So anyway, Judge Glassman told my son that the court date had been changed for them to go to court because they were set to go to court on the 4th, but they end up having a meeting on that 7th. And then he told him he was going to tell him, reschedule the thing and tell him the date, but he told him at the last minute, and Hayden was sending him stuff telling him that the meeting was on another day. So by the time my son got to court, Judge Karen Williams, dismissed the case, struck the police report, and awarded Glassman attorney fees, unlimited attorney fees. So my son first filed for a motion of reconsideration because he was trying to explain that, what was going on. How can a case get dismissed when you're telling somebody that attorney threatened you? But see, this even further. What if my son had ended up deceased? Make a long story. It's interesting. So anyway, my son he started doing some research, and it brings him to Karen Williams' Facebook page. November the 15th, 2017. Judge Williams posted her retirement event at the Shelby County Courthouse, surrounded by all these attorneys and friends and family, and she was taking pictures, and she took a picture with 2 men. But one of them, she stood out because she gave him praise out of all these people on her Facebook page that attended her retirement event. She singled out Attorney Richard Glassman. Attorney Richard Glassman, out of all these people. My son said, look at this, mama. I said, I said, but you know what? I said, what do you think? He said, I think they got something going on. So I said, read Tennessee Civil Rule 10B. Read 10B. For y'all that don't know, that's motion to recuse and vacate. And he cited everything. In fact, he cited a case that somebody gave me that called Caperton versus Massey. When the Supreme Court says when a judge should disqualify themselves from the case. My son went to court. In fact, he used that picture as evidence. Her and court next Judge Karen and Glassman started reminiscing and laughing and stuff, which was supposed to be a simple motion to recuse. My son got there at 9 o'clock. He didn't leave there till almost 12 o'clock because she had to have, when it got to his case, she had to what is it? When you get off the bench, them judges know it. I can't forget. Recess. She had to recess 2 or 3 times, and it took hours, and she left, and then Glassman left, and you couldn't find Glassman. He went around the corner, so you know they was talking. So anyway, came back. She said, I can't. At that time, my son had sent a complaint down to the Tennessee Court of Appeals Judiciary. But the strangest thing is, I drove it down there, and they didn't get it. Ain't that something? Ain't that something that came up missing? So anyway, so my son, the judge said, well, I can't recuse myself. This ain't a good enough reason to recuse myself. And my hands are tied in vacating my decision. She made that non-appealable. Now, Tennessee Rule 10B says that anytime a judge denies you recusal, that accelerates your appeal to them. But in this case, she told my son it was moot and non-appealable. In fact, emailed it to him, which would have normally came in the mail. My son now, at this point, he's stressed out. He ain't never had a court proceeding. He ain't never been in this type of situation. This is not only affecting his mental health, it's affecting his job performance and stuff. And he was worried. So he took the case. He knew he wasn't going to get a fair trial. He took the case and put it in federal court. That's where he took it in. Oh, but it gets even better. See that attorney Glassman, he went back to Circuit Court Division 3 and filed a motion for attorney fees. He said his attorney fees for helping that case from February to April was $27,000. He was seeking $27,000. They only went to court one time. $27,000. On a forged lease, and use that as evidence. Because remember now, Judge Williams declared that discredited my son's true lease and upheld a lease that was forged, that was reported by the police, and didn't have his daddy's signature on it. Had it printed on there. So he went to court, and this time he met with Judge Childress. And Judge Childress told him that he couldn't do nothing because the ruling was already made by Judge Williams. But after hearing my son's story, he didn't give Glassman $27,000. He ordered $10,000, which is to me still too much because it's a forged lease. So my son filed a notice of appeal because at first Glassman had told him, had wrote on the drafting that it was non-appealable. See, that's how they was getting it. But see, after my son told him that you go ahead and get that thing signed so I can go ahead and turn it into the board, then that's when he took that part off and Judge Childress signed it. So my son appealed. He asked for an emergency stay on that order and asked for an appeal on the whole situation because Glassman opened it up. Well, the emergency stay was denied. And guess who it was denied by? Judge Valerie Smith. Strange now, because a motion to recuse under Tennessee rules says that even if you have familiar knowledge of the case. So she knew familiar knowledge of the case before she got to the Court of Appeals. Well, now this goes to a bigger thing, because now it shows that the courts of Shelby County, Tennessee Civil Division has created what they call a RICO, a racketeering, Racketeering Influence Organization Act. You said, well, Samantha, how is that? How do they do that? Well, because they're using the court system against minorities, especially those who don't have an attorney, to make the attorneys on the other side make a profit. So, in other words, if you represent yourself without an attorney, your landlord can go bring in a forged lease. The judge knows it's a forged lease. The attorneys knows it's a forged lease. And even if you bring in the correct lease, the judge is going to discredit your true lease and uphold the forged lease so the attorney can get attorney fees. See, Judge Williams and attorney Glassman has had a relationship because it is stated how, you know what, anytime he presides before her case, he always wins and the appellate court changes back. So this brings you to why the Tennessee Board of Professional Responsibility didn't pick it up. Ain't like it ain't a violation. In fact, it's perjury, it's altering a document, it's obstruction of justice, it's altering a document, it's identity theft. Some of these crimes are forgery. Some of them are forgery. So you say, well, every time my son submitted a complaint against him, even with the evidence, the Board of Professionals' responsibility will always come back and say it's the judge's obligation to report Attorney Glassman, not you. But then the judge is with Attorney Glassman. You kind of get the point. You get the point. So now, I ain't going to tell you what the next step is, but now I just wanted to let you folks know that when you go down there on a wrongful eviction, that's the scheme that they got now. That's the running ticket that they got now. They got that. If you go down there, they got a scheme. It's a money bribe enterprise. Yeah, see, I had to look at the laws on that. It's extortion. In this case, Mr. Glassman committed extortion because he threatened my son and he using judges, attorneys, and clerks to carry it out. Yeah. So Memphis, we have a problem. This is where it goes. So when you talk about that unity thing, this is how they're working to make it homeless, to accelerate the homeless in Memphis. See, because you know what, when a landlord goes down there and put in a writ for eviction, you know, especially when it's black folks, you automatically assume that you're not paying your bills. They don't give you no benefit of the doubt. They don't ask you, they do a procedure. You can submit evidence, and for some reason, that lawyer who's committing a crime is treated more like he's right than the evidence that you got. So I told my son, you just experiencing the true justice of the Shelby County courts. That's what you're doing. You're experiencing the true justice. Oh, by the way, Kara Williams is white. Valerie Smith is white. Attorney Golden is white. Hayden B. Davis is white. My son is black. And I know you're going to say, well, you know what? He should have hired an attorney. Yeah, maybe he should. Maybe he should. But the point is that the United States Constitution under the 14th Amendment does not say that you have to go hire an attorney. And for this, it should have been a walk in the park. But when you got a crime-ridden, corrupt system with criminal entities such as Richard Glassman, and I hope he try to get me for defamation. I really do, because you know defamation only means that the truth. Like I said, Richard Glassman has been sued for malpractice before. In fact, he got a $425,000 judgment for malpractice. So just because they white don't mean they right. Yeah, but they have sanctioned other attorneys in Memphis. I'm just gonna name a few. In another county, this guy named Attorney Alan Norton was just disbarred for forging judges and attorney signature. He was disbarred. Let's see, wait a minute now. Hold on. A judge in Shelby County just got sanctioned for using his letterhead, public sanction for using his letterheading to write a letter on behalf of 2 defendants in another state, and failed to disclose that his wife was part of the lawsuit with the 2 defendants. Now he accepted he cooperated with the investigation, he accepted his public censure, and he moved on. But wait a minute, but that judge was black. And he did less than what Judge Williams did. She ain't been sanctioned yet. She ain't been investigated yet. Wait a minute now. Let's go to the attorneys. Now I'm going to mention the attorney's name. Archie Sanders just got sanctioned, suspended, his license suspended for not communicating with a client over an insurance claim that was 20 years old. They suspended him. But that's not as bad as what Glassman did. So, it's clear that the Tennessee Board of Professional Responsibility has a certain unlevel playing field when it comes to certain judges being sanctioned, and the Tennessee Board has a certain thing when it comes to lawyers being sanctioned. So that's the criminal enterprise that's going on at West Tennessee. So when you go to court in Shelby County over wrongful eviction, your chances, even with your paper receipts, your lease agreement and stuff, is gonna get discredited because they got a game going on there, and that's how the lawyers are getting paid. They can set up a system where, because even if you go to the Supreme Court in Tennessee on them, it depends on what like if my son filed a Supreme Court brief in Tennessee, guess where it's gonna go? Back to Jackson. So that's how it's, because everything is in that area. It don't go to Nashville, it don't go to Knoxville, it don't do that, because it's that. The criminal entity, the enterprise, can go unnoticed, undetected, and organized. Y'all think about that. And you wonder why so many evictions are coming up right about now. That's the reason why. So everybody that's being evicted may not have been evicted in a fair tribunal. Please share this video. And if you are a victim of that, email me, inbox me, because this machine against minorities has to stop. God let my son get exposed of it. So maybe it'll be a game changer for you.